Welcome to my presentation for Turf 297. This is going to be a PowerPoint on construction of a nursery green and why it's a good idea to have one. So we're going to talk about the demolition and the reconstruction of a nursery green that I did for Inglewood Golf Club. It's going to go through all the steps, materials that were used during the construction of the nursery. So sit back, relax, and hopefully enjoy. So a little background on the golf course where the nursery green is located. We are at Inglewood Golf Club. That's in Kenmore, Washington. It's at the northern tip of Lake Washington, in case any of you did not know where Kenmore was. The golf course was built in 1919, and the architect was A.V. McCann. We've hosted several events. The two major ones have been the GTE Classic, which was a senior event held in the late 80s, early 90s, as well as the Freddie Couples Invitational that was held here for 5 years. So the reason for the nursery green is that we are working on an ongoing renovation. So it started about 5 years ago and should be finished in the spring of 2021. So a question that comes up is, why have a nursery green? Well, for us, it's for future green expansion. It's for repairs on existing greens that we have. And a big one for us is new hire training. So some of the repairs that you might need a nursery green for are pest damage. So we have crows that will pick at our greens from time to time, causing large holes, as well as deer running across our greens. Machine damage. So this might consist of an air fryer malfunctioning on a green or a hydraulic hose busting on a mower, as well as vandalism. So we've had a drunk drive across our green before, and we've also had someone with a chemical write a note to us on the green that caused the green to die. Those are instances of when we'd had to utilize our nursery green for repairs on the golf course. Like I noted earlier, we also utilize the nursery green for training. This is a great place to take our new hires to learn how to mow greens, roll greens. We also use it for experimentation, so whether that's new blades on our Planet Turf or new tines on an aerator, as well as maybe a new chemical that we have not used before. So it's better to wreck something on the nursery green than it is to wreck something on one of our regular greens. So even though we'll utilize the nursery green for all the aforementioned reasons, the biggest one for us is for future green expansions. As you can see by these pictures, these are greens that we have renovated over the past couple years. In fall of 2020, going into spring of 2021, we'll be renovating 7 more greens. So some of those will be more than just green expansions, some of those will be complete reconstructions of greens. So there were several factors when choosing a location for our nursery green. One of those was irrigation. Was there already irrigation on the site that we were looking at? So we did not want to have to do any new construction on our irrigation system, so that was important to us. The other was access to sun, especially morning sun. So you can see from the picture there that we did get morning sun, but we do have some trees on the right, so we ended up removing a lot of those trees to get better access to sunlight. And then the other factor was it quickly accessible from everywhere on the golf course? So this is a centrally located area on our golf course. So we're on 140 acres, so it takes time from go to one end to the other. So if the green was centrally located, it would be beneficial. When discussing the materials used to build the nursery green, we batted around several ideas. The one that we landed on was aerification plugs from our approaches and fairways. This option is available to us because we spray a product called Segment. So it kills ryegrass on, well, whatever you spray it on. And we spray it on our fairways, tees, and approaches. So we are about 95 to 99% POA on all those surfaces now. Normally we would use green plugs, but we solid-tined this year on our greens, so that option was not available to us. Other options that we discussed were seed. That's now an option for POA. There's a decent seed out there now. But we chose to harvest our plugs so we would have the same variety of our POA to do the green expansions. It just makes the green expansions seamless and they heal quicker visually if we're using the POA from our golf course. Another option was sod that we talked about, but again, we decided not to go with those for the same reasons that we decided not to go with seed. All right, here we are, finally to the actual construction of the nursery green. We're going to get started with the removal of the old turf. So as I mentioned earlier, the first nursery green we had in this area was used for green expansion on previous greens. So the one that we are going to be making is just going to go back in the same exact spot. So the first step in this process was to sod cut the area that we wanted the nursery green to go in. After everything was sod cut, we used a tractor and we scraped up all that sod and put it into piles. We then used that tractor to pick those piles up, put them into a Toro Workman, and then we hauled all that material to our dump site. So normally this would be where we would have installed drainage in the nursery green, but since this is a location that was already a nursery green, the drainage was already installed. But I will go through the steps that we took when we initially installed the drainage. When I originally installed the drainage for the nursery green, I used a 4-inch perforated pipe. We went on 10-foot centers just to encourage maximum drainage. And then we used a pea gravel base with sand to top off each trench. And then once the trench was topped off, we topped the entire green off with about 2 to 3 inches of greens grade sand. I'm going to touch base on some equipment that we use for the drainage portion of this project. The first being a Vermeer trencher that we have at our golf course. We use the Hopack front portion of it for this project. We have used the trencher part for multiple drainage projects as well. It just digs a little bit smaller trench. The other piece of equipment that we used is a laser level. So this allows us to make sure that we have fall throughout our drainage trenches throughout the entire green. And then the most important, and this isn't generally, or it's not necessarily a piece of equipment, but the people that worked on this project with me were just a huge asset. So having a knowledgeable staff that understands what we're trying to accomplish is huge when doing a project like this. Now we're at the third portion of this project, which usually is pretty straightforward, but for this project, it turns out it was quite interesting. Since the nursery green that was in this previous spot was used for renovations, we found our sand base to be a little bit depleted. So normally we would use a 80-20 mix of sand and soil for the base, but what makes this project interesting was that a high school located near us, Bothell High School, was resurfacing their softball field and removing a whole bunch of soil out of it. And we found that this soil was going to be great for our project. It practically was an 80-20 mix. It wasn't perfect. There was a little bit of debris in it, but it was free and we thought it would work really well. And it was free. So it saved us a lot of money on this project. Practically it was free except for labor. So this slide is just to show you some of the equipment that we used for the sand-based portion of this project. The first being a Dakota trailer that was attached to our Kubota tractor that was used to haul all the sand to the green site. And then from there, we used a small John Deere tractor to smooth everything out, kind of get a rough shaping of the green. And then after that was done, we used a Sand Pro with a blade on the front to get a final shaping. And then after everything was shaped, we just watered the soil to kind of compact it and just to make it a little bit more manageable for the next phase of the project. And the next portion of that project was the plugs. So we harvested these plugs from our number 8 and number 14 approaches. And then we also had to go back and harvest from the beginning of number 9 fairway and number 14 fairway, because after we started, we realized that we were going to need a lot more plugs. And number 9 and number 14 fairways offered us an area that was not going to be too intrusive to the golfers. So again, this is only an option for us because the segment that we spray, as our fairways are don't have any ryegrass in them. And then to harvest it, we used a Toro Procore 846 and a core harvester attached to a Cushman that just went and dropped everything off at the site of the nursery green. Once the plugs were dumped at the site of the nursery green, I took the small John Deere tractor and did a rough grade with that. And then once I felt I was in a good spot with that, I took the Sand Pro and did a final machine grade with the Sand Pro. When we finished with the Sand Pro, we realized that there was a lot of bare spots still in there, so we went back and filled those bare spots in and then did a final grading by hand. Once the final grading was done, we took our Kubota tractor and compacted the plugs. So this was to get a better visualization of what the final grade of the green was going to be like. And it also compacted the plugs, which helps the plug accept water a little bit better and eventually root in as well. So once we got everything compacted, we noticed that there was quite a few bare spots still left in the green. So we went and harvested some more plugs from number 9 and number 14, and we added those plugs by hand to fill in the spots. And then we went through and did another final grading by hand. After this, we had to compact again for the same reasons, so it helped bind the plugs together for watering and eventual root growth. Which actually brings us to the final portion of the construction of the green, which was to top dress heavily with our greens grade sand, and then also apply a fertilizer to help the plugs get going a little bit. Now we're at the grow-in stage of the green. Right now it's just kind of waiting and watering. So let the green kind of do its own thing for a little bit. The grow-in portion is pretty much the most uneventful part of this. It's just watering, waiting. The good thing about it, though, is we did have 2 weeks of perfect weather for a grow-in. So after about 2 weeks, we were able to get on the green for the first time. So we got on it to try to smooth it out a little bit. So you can see I'm here with a Toro 1600 walk mower. It has a sandbag in the front of it, and that sandbag is just to add a little bit of weight to the mower to smooth out the green a little bit. We are not actually mowing anything at this time. All right, big day, first mow day. So this was about 2.5 weeks after we started. You can see September 18th, 2019. We were able to get on there for our first mow. We used the Toro Greensmaster 1600 walk mower for this. The height of cut was set at 400, or just under a ½ inch. And on this day, the very first mow, I did end up doing a double cut because there was so much grass on it, so which was good for us. So now our green is in the regular maintenance part of its journey, I guess you could say. I'm going to briefly go through kind of what the regular maintenance has been on it for the last couple months. So one of the most important regular maintenance practices that we do on the green is heavy top dressing. So we'll go out every 2 weeks at a minimum and put down some greens grade sand from Icon. Other maintenance practices that the green has seen is getting regular fertilizer and fungicide applications from our spray rig. Regular watering is needed, as well as rolling to smooth out the green. And then there's also mowing. We were on a schedule of mowing it every 3 days at the end of September. Obviously, that's slowed down a lot now. We're practically mowing about every 2 weeks now. But when it was initially growing in, it was growing pretty good. Every 2 weeks, we would lower the height of the mower till eventually we got down to a height of cut of 250. And that's where we're going to leave it for the wintertime. In the springtime, we will lower it to our regular greens height, which is 120 or just below 1/8 of an inch. And then that's what will stay till we harvest it. So overall, this project has been a huge success for us. It's now November and the green, well, it looks like a green right now. So the spots are starting to fill in a little bit. Over the winter, they'll fill in a little bit more. We're anticipating in the spring that it'll just start to explode again with growth, and we'll fill in the rest of the way. One concern that we did have was we've never used approach or fairway plugs for this type of project. So we've always used green plugs. So we're just not sure how the green will eventually look or feel, if it's going to be as seamless of a transition when we do our renovation as we originally thought. So just with the larger leaf blade of a fairway plug being different than a green plug, we're just not sure. So it might not be anything, but it's just something that we've been talking about and are kind of curious to see what will eventually happen. So again, this nursery green will be harvested in the fall of 2020 for our renovation projects. And then once that's all done, we will start all over in building another nursery green. So thank you guys for sitting through this. I appreciate it. It was a cool project to work on. And yeah, thank you very much.